Hello everyone, welcome back to the last R6 Manchester Major. This is the A stream, but on B stream we had Furia going up against Scars. I have certain expectations of how this went, but I could be wrong, so let's check in with our casters on the B stream to give us a little bit of a rundown of what exactly went down.
Thank you very much, Ginny, and lovely to see you, by the way. It's been about a year since I worked with Ginny, so always nice to have another very short person on the broadcast. Speaking of, Carter, what a game we just had. It was really close at the start. Scars gave it all that they had. As soon as it switched into the second half, it was all Furia all day long.
That was my biggest issue with that matchup, was we were hyping it up. We're like, oh my god, Scars are going 3-3 against the world champs, their attacking side on one of Furia's best maps. This is going to be close. Oh, they're sitting inside of the site, not doing anything. Oh, they're roaming and not getting aggressive and taking gunfights against Furia, not utilizing their star players. It was a very anticlimactic second half, unfortunately. And Furia taking the expected dub, but there was such a better game in there from Scars.
Yeah, I mean, there was a solid game, and we also got to see some cool stuff out of Furia. We got to see Herds really firing up some big games. Philippox had a stunning one as well.
KZ popping off too.
Yeah, and they just looked happy. They looked good. They looked fired up. Like they went down 0-2, almost 0-3, and Igor just got around him and whipped him back into shape. The team stepped up, potentially looking like tournament favorites now that BDS and FaZe are down in the lower bracket, in, if you want to call it that, in this Swiss phase. I feel like Furia, who in my brain I still want to call them W7M.
It's hard.
They are feeling like the best team in the tournament so far.
Yeah. And especially after that loss FaZe suffered earlier, Secret also beating Dark Zero 7-5 on the A stream as well. So that FaZe game, not just a fluke, Secret doing it against two opponents all in the same day. I mean, it's hard not to call Furia tournament favorites at this point, with FaZe and BDS both 0-1. Potentially one of them could be 0-2 by the end of the night if, say, against Liquid, Nesk has a pop-off game and Maya pops off. FaZe could very well find themselves down 0-2. We'll see what happens, though. Furia is certainly up there right now. Secret 2-0, and right now the game we have coming up, of course, ITB and Bleed also fighting for a 2-0 spot.
That is true. We, of course, have ITB Bleed on the B stream, but if you guys are sticking on the A stream, stick around as the desk will break that one down, and we'll get into that just now. If you are staying on the B stream, of course, we've got Bleed. These guys have made a huge statement at previous events, but coming into this event, they have a big team to go up against. Into the Breach, of course, one of the European teams that everyone is talking about. In the absence of teams like Wolves and Virtus Pro, Into the Breach have stepped into that breach, stepped into the shoes of these great European teams, and they've looked really solid.
And I think the most impressive thing about Into the Breach is they don't really need a star player to do the talking. They don't really have a Doki. They don't have a Shaiko. They don't have somebody you could point to and say, that is one of the best players in Europe. I think Creeds is excellent. I think Azur's been good on the entry too. Kendra a great IGL, but nobody is really taking over rounds and is the guy on ITB. It's the system that does the talking. It's the team that shows up in the server and not just one individual player consistently. And that's been the most impressive thing, is that they got second in EUL based on their merits as a team, as a five-man unit. That's what's been most impressive about ITB. And in their game against SSG earlier, did Creeds have a great showing? Yes. But everyone really on ITB had a pretty solid performance through and through.
Very much so. Now, of course, Into the Breach, they've actually only played one game so far at this major, seeding straight into Phase 2. They took down Space Station earlier today, and now they, of course, have a good game against Bleed. Now, for Bleed, this is going to be a much tougher match than we saw this morning, where they played Talon. Now they're talking about playing the second-best team from Europe, and I guess one of the top teams at the moment, it seems, in this tournament. These guys have seemingly come out of nowhere. Of course, we do have some old names on this roster. Kendra, or Kenny as he goes by these days. Quite a historic player, even technically a Pro League champion from way back in the Na'Vi days. But he's back on a team with some serious talent. Like, everyone's talking to me about Creeds and saying that he's, saying that he is an absolute gunner and has been outperforming everyone in the Europe League.
Yeah, Creed certainly has, and to be fair, we talk about ITB, you know, Creed's obviously having a standout performance, but if there's not really any star player, the same can't be said for Bleed, which is still very much the super team of the Asia region, right? Reaps certainly has been that guy this tournament. Asfi, in the past 6 months to the year, has had incredible games. Hoven is really stepping up when a lot of these teammates, specifically Asfi and Turtsta, have not been filling that aggressive role as they have previously. Hoven is having a decent performance, but that's unfortunately the story for Bleed so far. We talked about it in the Talon game earlier, and as opposed to ITB, who have only played one game, Bleed have had a much more consistent record that's been very inconsistent and not up to the standard we saw in Atlanta or SI. We'll see what the maps end up being here, and if maybe that'll go their way. Yeah, hope so at least.
Yeah, well, let's hope so. Of course, Bleed and into the breach. Now, Bleed's favorite map is Skyscraper, immediately banned out by ITB. ITB's favorite map is Bank, immediately banned out by Bleed. Who would have thought?
Yeah, usually how those kinds of things go, especially if you have a team like ITB, handed by Kangaroo Kenny, really solid coach, and Bleed headed by Julio, another very well-respected coach. Exactly, world champion Julio, very well-respected player and coach. These teams are going to have deep map pools, and you'd hope they'd have an 8-map pool minimum. And we talk about things hopefully being good for Bleed. Nighthaven Labs is a good map for them. They beat, I believe it was, what, CAG earlier in the tournament? 7-2 on Nighthaven?
On Nighthaven, yeah. It was actually 8-7 according to my... Oh, sorry, no, never mind, that was Skyscraper. Yeah, 7-2 over CAG on Nighthaven. You got a good memory, mate.
What can I say? I really am quite something. And I also recall, I believe in the Fury Best of 3 as well inside of the Domestic League. This was the map that Bleed won, I think, to qualify
7-1.
to the Manchester.
Indeed.
I just really am quite something. And the interesting thing for ITB, don't worry, I have this. I did not have this memorized. ITB haven't really played this map all that much inside of the Europe League this stage, and I would really base ITB's record on this map, on this roster we see right here. Because, you know, teams like FaZe, who've been a unit for a while, we could say, wow, they've got this record on Oregon for a while. But with Kendrew obviously making his way on the roster, Creed's a huge fragger for this team. It might be Kangaroo Kenny's system, but there's new players slotting in and executing that vision. And not having any footage on Nighthaven, it's going to be a bit problematic for Bleed. I imagine Julio was hoping he had a little more prep work to do.
Yeah, but end of the day, this is one of Bleed's favorite maps. They have had quite phenomenal performances on it as of late. I just mostly find it interesting that they didn't go to Clubhouse. It was the final decision of Bleed, either Club or Nighthaven Labs, and both maps, both of these teams value really highly in their preferences, but Bleed decided to leave Clubhouse out and go to Nighthaven instead. As we get into it, it's one of the newest maps to be introduced into the pool, and what a map it is. Nighthaven Labs. So many historic games have occurred here, not to mention the grand final of the 6 Invitational, where W7M, now Furia, took down FaZe. What an exciting map Nighthaven Labs can be, and to see which of these teams will go through flawless into the 3rd round of Swiss, this is where we will settle it. Of course, a very slight favor in the social prediction to ITB, but Bleed are certainly not counted out.
And I think for me, I would like to reflect the social prediction a bit more, that Bleed have a very good shot at closing out this game against ITB. But as I said in the Talon game earlier, I love this roster, and I like what they did in Atlanta, showcasing the individual skill, and what they did at SI, showcasing the new coordination under Julio. But both have been lacking in comparison to those previous events at Manchester. Bleed have not been that same team. Really close games, fighting tooth and nail to even get to this position, whereas ITB, asterisks, in the one game they've played, have looked quite good and are progressing very nicely from their high water mark in the EUL. Ban phase is almost gone and transpired. We see the Deimos taken off the board, interestingly, by Bleed, not wanting to maybe get that revolver and deathmark tracker in the hands of a player like Creed's, I would imagine. Yeah.
No, it's nice. It goes to show that they've got a solid read of this team. I'm loving the banter we're seeing in the chat as well. They are just going back and forth. And you can see the faces of Bleed. They're having a lot of fun with it as well. Like, this isn't smack talk. This is a lot of respect between these players. Quite a contrast to what we saw in the first Bleed game earlier today, where it was literally just all smack talk from Turnster against Talon and against Fabian. I saw that even spilled onto Twitter a little bit afterwards, which was lovely. But yeah, I'm really enjoying this energy we're seeing from Bleed. ITB, though, very serious team. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them fire up here, especially as they start on defense.
Especially, and with ITB to start, this is a team that is no stranger to roaming. I mean, when Solus is on the board, Creeds loves playing her, loves going for those roams, and with the operator bans transpiring, that's something ITB are going to have to lean into. Cade and Tuberow band. On this basement site in particular, a strategy that is very, very useful is, you know, Zodoing one, maybe Electric Claw tricking the other, or Bandit tricking the other. So not having those two options, one of these walls is getting opened up. One of these walls is going to get opened up, even if Oscar somehow turns into the Flash and Bandit tricks the other wall at the same time. Something's going to happen, so you got to lean into this roam. We're going to see Kenny, Creeds on the top floor, especially with that castle. They're trying to hold on to the middle floor for a good portion of the round.
Yeah, nice extended roam. It's going to be a challenge for Bleed to look to clear all of it, but they're always up for a good challenge. Mentalist is tempted to try and make something happen here on this breach, and as he is the Maverick, he can essentially do a little bit of that solo. Does have to be a little bit worried. He's actually just making little lines of sight. He's not doing anything too serious as of yet, which is a bit of a surprise to me.
mean, you can throw some flashbangs through those holes, maybe a nade to stop Oscar from bandit tricking, so he's not going to feel worried about playing on that wall right now, but if he wants to bandit trick something later, Bleed have options to throw utility in and either make playing on that wall very concerning for Oscar, or if they throw a grenade in, might very well cost him his life if he decides to stay there too long. But as I already mentioned, ITB are well aware that hard breach denial is not going to be their main win condition. It's just something they can't bet on, especially on this bomb site, especially with Cade and Tubero off the board. So you're looking to players like Azur or Creeds to have good impact in this round. And considering the positions they're denying, they could be quite strong. Noah, Creeds, and Azur, all on this middle floor, but more importantly, holding control of that cargo soft floor. So Hoven can't just throw those boogie drones in and detonate them without worrying, because Azur can shoot them, he can hold this position, and contest the vertical angles for a long time. It's working out so far, by the way, because we're half the round in. Not a lick of damage to be dealt to either or any player in the lobby, but more importantly, Bleed have not dealt any damage in this round.
Yeah, I mean, they've gained some map control, but really not enough. Flash goes in. Oh, Hoven, did he know that he was dropping straight downstairs? He's pretty much in the bomb site, and he's found the opening kill.
I like this.
This is seemingly a rush from Bleed. 2 minutes into the round, and this diffuser will indeed be planted. However, Mentalist immediately taken down afterwards. Good response from Noah. He's found 2. And now it is up to the Asian roster to lock in a post-plant. Still roamers at large. But Azur's in a bit of an awkward one. He has a bit of a read. Can't land enough shots for Asfi. Creeds has found his as well onto Reaps. And suddenly, ITB have a substantial advantage. Azur finds his pick. All up to Turdster now in a 1 versus 4. And with Kenny hitting that diffuser, it's not going to happen. ITB, what a retake.
I mean, it was almost stopped in its tracks completely. Noah killed the player with the diffuser, killed Mentalist about a quarter of a second after they actually entered the post. That denial was almost precise from ITB to basically end the round before we even got to the post plant. But Mentalist is able to get it down. Noah kills him a quarter second later. But then the retake is very, very nice. Azur moving across the top floor, forcing the player inside of cargo to take gunfights with him, but the castle doesn't overplay his hand. He bobs and weaves, wastes his time, and lets the rest of the team, the bulk of the retake on the site, actually try to win those engagements. ITB do so successfully and unfortunately. And what was a really nice call from Bleed. They get that first pick. It's Hoven to find it. They get the diffuser down because they realize it's really biased on the roam and biased towards assembly. Nobody actually inside a tank. I like the call. But ITB win the fights on the retakes and coordinate very well, and that makes them the better in round 1.
Very much. Narrow margins, though. It wouldn't have taken much for Bleed to steal that round away. Now we see ITB for a second defense. They're going to the top floor. This IT breach can be quite a fickle matter as well for teams to try and clear, to try and deal with.
Especially those mines.
Yeah, and, well, the thing that we do have from Bleed immediately is this Montagne. And Monty is such a powerful operator, as we've seen many teams use to great efficacy so far. I love this pre-rip C4 from Noah. He might actually find Reaps here.
Oh, too far.
Just slightly too far. Big player that you want to keep alive, though, as well. Reaps has been the best player for Bleed in this tournament, and one of the best players in the tournament, full stop. In fact, the 6th top-rated player in the Manchester Major thus far.
I was talking about this with Leo, though, Alfama, is that Reaps is often, though, on these operators that you want to stay alive for a long time. You know, maybe your Bucks, your Hibanas, or at least stay alive to use their utility, as opposed to, you know, Turdster, for example. If there's not a Mira on board, the Ash charges aren't that big of a concern. Or Hoven on that IQ. There's not many electronics, not that big of a concern. Obviously, there's impact for both those operators here. There is, in fact, a Mira, and Creeds is on the Solus, which, if you saw earlier in the tournament, Bleed actually found quite a good solution for on this map when the Solus was playing down below in basement. Faking a breach charge on a wall, IQ either scanner out, domes her through the wall. But Creeds is very tenured on this operator and very talented a player, and he's not in such an easy position. Instead, surrounded by bulletproof walls, scanning, seeing where Bleed are droning, where they're going to take from, and right now, Bleed not really concerned about that solo roamer down below. Well, that might change momentarily with Turdster.
Turdster's on for a bit of a lurk. This is quite common, though. A lot of teams like to go for these lurks down in the basement. He is being droned ahead as well, which is kind of unusual, but does give him a lot of ability to get a bit of control. Oh, he might be able to get the drop on this player. Now, Mira knows exactly where he is. Kenny is going to hear Turdster. Oh, Turd has the opportunity and finds the pick, but Azur elsewhere has taken down Mentalist and a second one. It's Oscar. who springs into action for that. Very solid look for ITB.
Solid look, too, and look at the other player. Turdster, frankly, his death doesn't even matter. It's the Monty going down as the first pick. That's the headline right there. Asfi trying to regain the momentum, but instead Creeds is pinched down below by Hoven and the Maverick of Asfi. But still, the Monty's gone. Still the player that could brute force control through IT on top of Garage Stairs is dealt with. Bleed's saving grace is this 3v3. They could make it work. They've got 4 flashbangs as well to blind these players. Once they pick up the diffuser, they'll have to move in. The secondary utility needs to land, and they have to kill Oscar if they want to push Aqua.
Dreadmine not active. Asfi can walk forward safely. Diffuser in hand, and he's got Hoven to support him. However, Oscar's taken him down. Oscar's gone huge this round. 3 big kills. Reaps now 1 versus 3. All of these players know exactly where he is. He's walking to a dead crossfire, and Oscar finds his 4th. ITB looking red hot, and there's nobody more fired up than Gangrel Kenny behind him.
Yeah, I was talking to Kenny the other night as well. You know, just getting the lay of the land once I flew in from, you know, Cornfield, Indiana, seeing what's up at the Manchester Major. And I was talking to Kenny, and he mentioned that it's a very conscious decision for him to get hype like this, because he said, I don't trash talk the other team. I'm getting hype for my players. I know that I can bring the energy up when it needs to be, or keep it up if it's already there and my team is already there. So I get hype, I get excited to try to make sure that my team is dialed in. And that's why he's getting loud like that. You don't see him yelling at the other team. He's cheering on Oscar. He's cheering on Kenny when they're popping off. And Oscar in that round, the deciding factor. Though it was Azure who cut down the Monty, it's still Oscar with that triple kill over by Aqua. The roams, when they've been there, have wasted time or been solid for ITB, but it's actually been the on-site coordination, whether retaking or holding it in that round, that have been basically the best thing for these defenses so far.
Bleed looking a little bit disjointed in a lot of these rounds, right? Even when they do have a nice idea, it doesn't take much for ITB to pick it to pieces. 2 rounds of defense on the trot here for ITB. They found their momentum. They're looking very comfy. And they move on to what many people consider to be the tertiary bomb site here. Not kitchen, but storage and cargo. Now, this can be quite an awkward bomb site, but the same can be said for attacking it, right? Because in terms of denying the plant, you can do that from the floor above, the floor below, or the bomb site itself. And it does effectively mean that this bomb site engages the entire map of Nighthaven.
Loading new mag.
But something going in Bleed's column is you know that somebody's likely going to be down there later on in the round. Could be the Valkyrie with the C4, could be Creeds with the Specchio scanner, but you know that's an option that ITB want to keep available and want to put some focus on, even if it's not their primary win condition. We already saw Azure down there earlier, and I imagine both him or Creeds could find themselves downstairs in that basement at some point in the round. Creeds, though, very much upstairs, runs out, kills Asfi the Dokkaebi. You're going to be wishing you had those calls to hunt down the Solus later in the round, but instead, Creeds gets the 5v4 and is still in the wind, escaping the clutches of Bleed and likely going to cause more problems down the road.
That's not a good look, is it, Carter? 3 donuts for Bleed, and 2 players on ITB yet to fall, Azza and Noah. 0 deaths. A long way to go for Bleed. There we go. That's a big pick. That's what they needed. Reaps has found Noah. No more keeper barriers active. He almost gets C4, though. He falls on back, and Creed swings him anyway. ITB are dominating here. They are not letting Bleed play their game. They have locked them out. Turdster punishes an over-aggressive Oscar, and that does bring us back into a 3v3. But ITB have not taken their pedal off the metal.
No, they're still keeping the pace, keeping Bleed at bay, and I think what's so strong for ITB right now, every single operator remaining can go down below and deny the plant vertically. You've got 2 C4s, or you have Creeds with that Specchio scanner. Sure, he might be 1 HP, but if Bleed commit to an execute, they're going to have 1 player putting the diffuser down, at least 1 covering, maybe 2 as well. Maybe they send 1 guy down below to deal with the player vertically, but that still makes a retake on the top floor. 2 guns on ITB against 1 gun on Bleed, if that's what happens. This is a very tenuous 3v3 for Bleed to thread, and also a post plan that ITB could very easily deny with literally any of their remaining players.
A lot of options for ITB, and so it just comes down to being patient now. In this little pre-execute moment, as Bleed look to try and make something happen, they do have a lurker upstairs.
That's the clear. Mentalist trying to take down one of these players, denying the plant vertically.
He has to land it. He has to cover his teammate, and it's Hoven to force this diffuser down. Turds actually come up for a lurk from elsewhere. Creeds is in a funny spot as well. Mentalist somehow keeps at bay these players above, but we know how good ITB are on these retakes. And Kenny kicks it off. Turds going to go below. He's the IQ. He can actually deny this disable from downstairs. Really, this is just about baiting time here for Bleed. As ITB are in a very solid position to make this retake work. They've got the numbers. And they're marching towards that diffuser. Kenny jumps on. Turster can see him. Is he going to be able to deal the damage? He does! This is a highlight play from Turster. Hoven's going to go deep. ITB! There's no time left! Big from Bleed. They get their first round of the game.
And that is a really well-played 3v3. And obviously, Turster deserves a lot of credit, you know, going down below, using that IQ scanner to deny the defuse. But really, I want to give credit to Mentalist for not overplaying his hand. He doesn't try to commit to the gunfight because he can see over that Kiva barricade. They've called, they want to go for a cargo plant, so he doesn't need to take the gunfight with the player all the way inside of second floor by Aqua. That's pushing too far, but he also doesn't need to swing further into the site to find Creed's bias towards the IT side because he can see if the Solus rotates across through that small gap between the door frame and the Kiva barricade. So Mentalist playing passive there, I think, was actually the best part of that 3v3 because he can say, you're safe to plant, Hoven, just cover him on the bottom floor. I have the second floor covered. Really well played and well called by Mentalist and executed by the rest of the team.
It's one thing to win on a tertiary bomb site, though, on your attack. It's another thing completely to actually have some success on these two primary bomb sites. And ITB were very convincing in these first two rounds, right, Carter? They didn't let up at all. But Bleed did manage to get the diffuser down on this basement bomb site, but that was a bit of a cheese play. They just rush-dropped the hatch about halfway through the round. They didn't go for a full clear. And I would be concerned if ITB are able to pull off another retake. I think it's a tough call for Bleed. Like, do they look to try and make an explosive play like that, or do you think they should be looking to go for something a bit more substantial in terms of a clear?
I mean, if they find the gap, they should take the opportunity, I'm not going to lie. And I mean, right here, sure, they may be not going for a clear, but doing this set play with the glass, looking through the smoke, it's not something unique to Bleed. It's a bit of an off play, but it's something we've seen a lot of teams across regions do. So I hope ITB, if they're actually ready for this, not to counter it, but at least not peeking it, which it appears they are once they see that smoke go down. Oscar hiding behind those boxes, nobody inside of the site pushing, nobody on these vertical angles peeking. Really good stuff, playing passive. They know probably what Bleed are going to do, and a very nice call and reaction from ITB to not get too aggressive or too antsy. And the set play from Bleed doesn't work. So you talked about should they hit that gap, should they go for a more full clear? Well, if they want to do the latter, they got to start now.
ITB have just always looked really comfortable and exuding confidence, which is funny because that's usually what Bleed are like. They usually like to play like in their opponent's face, but
it's two different things, right? Bleed are confident in their gunfights. ITB are confident in their system.
Well, Reaps does find the opening kill onto Kenny. Noah, indeed. Noah is very confident to continue peeking this angle as well on this roam game. Good information though for Bleed. Does make him think twice about it. He hears that drone. He doesn't know what they know and what they don't. As the glass goes for a peek. Oh my god! No way! Noah's just found two. I have no idea how he just wall-banged that glass through the smoke. Absolute fraudulent behavior. Mentalist pushed in for a refrag and didn't find it. Gnarly stuff from Noah, who's continuing to deal damage here. A third one finds him, and eventually he goes down. But he might have dealt just enough damage. Creeds looks for a little bit more before falling back.
He could cut down Asphy right here.
Reaps is on the ground.
Azur's still holding this too. Noah's very revivable. He gets the finisher. Can now maybe pick him up, but he's playing it safe.
Oh my god.
Man, look at the discipline right there. Doesn't even pick up Noah. Playing out the 3v1 now. This is really good stuff. Really, really nice stuff. Noah begging for his life in the alt chat.
Oh man.
That's funny.
I don't think Tess is taking out the default camera right next to him, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, that was quite a chaotic round there. And really, Noah just saved
MVP.
That. Yeah, absolute MVP of the round. Turster in a 1v3, but nobody's going to peek him. Nobody's going to give him a chance. Nobody's going to give him a look in. And as a result, this should be yet another very convincing round for ITB. Beautifully played. They are well and truly in control of Nighthaven.
Noah, definitely, at least in my mind, in contention for most improved player of Europe. On that previous, a year ago when they were TT9, then Into the Breach, was very consistently and repeatedly talked as the weakest link or one of the weakest links of that team. To be fair, TT9 was a weak chain overall back a year ago, but now Noah, this stage, has really come into his own. He's not the best player on the team. Don't get me wrong, at least statistically. Azer's leading the entry. Creeds is the closest they have to a star player. Kenny's the IGL. But where Noah before left a lot to be desired, Noah now is just good. He's showing up. He has high-impact moments. He's making impact even in smaller engagements. And with the system that Kangaroo Kenny has developed on this team, he's really started performing very, very well. Bleed now obviously taking their tactical timeout as they've gone down 3-1. And talking about systems, this is where Julio needs to step in and I think get Bleed to figure out a more solid game plan, because we saw them react to that gap in the first round, right? We also saw them pick up that nice 3v3, but a lot of those were in-round calls. The beginnings of these rounds seem very formless for Bleed. Not a lot of set things they've decided upon, and it seems to be costing them a lot of time.
I'm not sure whether it's strategic or whether this is more just a form thing for Bleed. Like, in that tactical timeout they've taken now, is Julio saying, guys, calm down, etc., etc., or is it more like, okay, guys, you're not committing to this game plan that we've got? To some degree, it's just ITB rather, running around this map. And it's so difficult, like when you've got Noah last round being such a menace on that roam, Bleed are finding that really difficult to deal with. And I think like Bleed are a team where they know how to play the really high level of Siege.
Oh,
obviously
definitely.
they've got Julio coaching them, but they are chronic overthinkers. Absolute fraudulent overthinkers.
That's what it seems like, because I know Julio's got a good game plan. I know Mentalist can call a good game of Siege, and I watched this team play at SI. I know Turtsta, Hoven, and Reaps can execute a good game plan. So what's the problem? Has Mentalist and Julio stopped being good at their jobs? Probably not, given their long careers in Rainbow Six. So it's probably a case of, and if they've executed the game plan previously, it could very well be just overthinking, which teams go through. It's something you have to go through as a team and work through, but it's creeping up right here where they're overthinking things in round, and when they decide on something, they look great. Even in that one round where they saw that gap, sure, they lost it, but they still got the diffuser down with a really nice call. But if they are overthinking, which it appears they're doing, it's costing them these attacks, and hopefully this tactical timeout will slow the momentum on ITB's side.
That's what Bleed are hoping for sure. It is a slow attack though. 45 seconds in, this IT wall being breached thanks to the Maverick. Interesting way to breach it. Long angle at the bottom just to enable this one-way fight from the staircase outside. But ITB are not going to contest that. A little peak angle as well, and a crouchable rotate hole. Very Picasso of Asfi, but it does get the job done. It does give an avenue towards the site for the attack. See the Ying for the first time.
It's a bit surprising, especially Ying and Grim on the board.
I like this, as the SQ comes on through, Hoven almost finds it, he misses both players. So unfortunate, the timing just off. As a low HP, Creeds has taken a bit of damage as well. Bleed need to capitalize on this. They've got the map control they were looking for, but it could so easily flip back against them.
It could. They are a bit boxed in right now, but now with Turtsta finding that 4v5, finding a second player retaking over towards lobby stairs, now they can spend this time to decide on something, because I like that quick thinking. I like that decision making. Hoven realizes with those Candelas, only one player here. He can push in and easily go 1-for-1 with Reaps over by the garage door, but he doesn't even need to do that. The Azami falls back completely. Turtsta is able to hit a lurk on the backside and find one kill. The two is just icing on the cake at that point. And now Bleed have so much of what they need for the execute. They can push in through Gen, push in through Garage. They have an execute here. A 5v2 on either of the reduced HP players would just make it even easier.
The Reap's starting to move on forward. Got to worry about these dread mines. Got to worry about the bulletproof camera staring him in the face. Almost lands a good shot there onto Azza. Low HP. Still at large, still alive. ITB just waiting for this onslaught. Turtsta is a big position, but not able to refrag that teammate as of yet. A 4v2 still winnable. But once again, Reap steps up. Oscar's gone down. All up to Azza now. 1 HP. Finds the first. The trade comes through for the Chinese. Big play from Reaps. Big round from Reaps. And Bleed now just touching distance. 1 round trailing behind into the breach.
Yeah, for me, sure, Reaps got a 3K that round. That's all well and good. But for me, that was Bleed were the MVPs of that round because the play there, the strat, it was very clear what they wanted to do. They wanted to acquire Garage, acquire IT, then flood into the site through those, that doorway through IT, the rotate into Garage. That was their win condition, and that was evident from beginning to end. And then how do they execute it? They've got 2 players pushing Garage when there's 1 player actually holding the Azami. They clear her out, they get that control, they have turrets on the backside to see if anybody goes for a flank. 2 people try, 2 people from ITB die, and Bleed convert the round. That is, quite literally, the exact round I needed to see after that tactical timeout. Like, literally, down to the movements of each player for Bleed, in my mind, to stay competitive in this series, and we've just seen it.
Yeah, so is it realistically possible for Bleed to make a solid enough comeback to win this game, despite being really thrown around in the first few rounds?
Attacking the kitchen bomb site, it very well could be.
I think it absolutely is. I mean, they got their first round win on a tertiary bomb site. Now, ITB, who could go back upstairs to that IT bomb site, that server CCTV bomb site, they instead are going to go and try a bomb site they have yet to play all game long so far. If Bleed win this, not only will momentum be on their side squarely, but of course they'll be 3-3 on the unfavored side of Nighthaven Labs. Both teams prefer defense on this map. We've seen that statistically. And I think it would speak volumes if Bleed are able to lock in an even half on their attack.
It would, especially, by the way, Asfi and Mentalist still both have 0 kills. Like, they're both still, I mean, to be fair, Asfi has, only seen 4 people and died 4 times, but it's not been great from either player, and yet they're still able to have a really, really solid round 5, even if Reaps, did a lot of the heavy lifting in the kill department. For this bomb site in particular, you have to clear out this top floor. You have to push meeting, the meeting player back, but you don't need to clear out the whole thing. You need to clear out these immediate rooms, meeting, top lobby, maybe open up the connector breach too, and then you can just get away with the half clear. You then open up the breach down below and then try to get maybe plant in on the cafeteria side. Sometimes we'll see an Osa or a Monty be used to facilitate that. Neither here, and unfortunately, no good advantage for Bleed. Hoven taken down and Turched on the floor. Just a potential 3v4 Turched gets confirmed.
Okay. Very awkward. Vertical game punishing Bleed. ITB looking very organized. Oh, Turched is actually outside the building. He may get revived here. Kenny forced on back. Tempted to go for another repeat. This is very cheeky. He could lose his life, but I don't think Bleed have got that read.
I don't think they do. They've picked up Turched again, of course, but no, there. Kendrew found out. Still 8 drones alive, by the way, for Bleed. That is absolutely absurd that they still have that much available intel. So many flashbangs, 2 to rely on, 5 remaining. It'd be very ironic, by the way, with 7 drones remaining now. They don't drone this Fenrir in the corner that is playing right here. Hopefully they do, though. Hopefully they do.
There's also a bulletproof camera staring at Mentalist here as well. So very good setup. Oh, hello, Creeds. That's very aggressive. Very dangerous as well. Kenny ran in this corner. Could refrag. He could push for it. There's information. That bulletproof camera. Nets, no, not a kill. Asfi lit up, but just barely. Kenny looks for a bit more. Turched, meanwhile, is taking down Azza. So this is grim for ITB. It puts the pressure onto Kenny to deliver.
That's diffuser.
Finds one. That is the diffuser down, but he's going to rotate back upstairs. His position was spotted, and I believe they should be aware of the fact that he's gone upstairs. But Mentalist and Turd, both low HP. It would take very little for Kenny and Oscar to bring this back.
But if he kills Reaps here, the full HP player, this is an easy 1v1 with Reaps not aware. If he wins this fight, the round's wide open!
You have to win this now, Mentalists. You've only got 1 kill so far. But Kenny now upstairs, and he's got this vertical potential available to him. There's so much information for ITB around that never should have gone their way, has been stolen. Thanks to Kenny himself. Tersa in a 1v2 does not last. ITB say, no, you will not get your even half. We steal 4 rounds of defense.
That's the experience at play right there. Kendrew making every single right move down to the singular step. He wraps around. I thought Mentalist was there. Turns out it was a full HP Asfi, and I'm like, oh, he's fired a lot more shots at this guy than I thought it would take to kill Mentalist. That's weird. Well, it's because it was the Thermite. They swap positions, but then he doesn't re-peek it. He wraps around. Asfi's so concerned about both sides of that staircase, he ends up dying, drops Diffuser, and Kenny then rotates up the stairs and plays passive. Waits for Bleed to make the next move because Kenny could take the initiative, but he's got no intel. So he plays it safe, waits for Bleed to peek, and winning that 1v1 with Reaps. That is the gunfight that could have changed the course of the round. If Kenny loses that, it's a 1v3. They can move on to the site. They have the diffuser. They can trade that down. But with Kenny getting that kill, it's a 2v2, but he retakes the vertical angles, and that's what does Bleed in the end.
Reloading.
Another round that goes begging, right? Like, Bleed would absolutely be kicking themselves for losing that round. They did so much right. It was a tertiary bomb site.
4v3 advantage.
Wide open for them, and they fumbled it. ITB are laughing right now. They built up so much confidence. They had a very strong start to this game, and they're weathering the storm as well of Bleed making that comeback happen. Like, at the end of the day, Bleed took their tactical timeout and only got one round for it.
A great round, to be fair.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. It's still just worth... A great round is worth just as much as a pretty poor, but we just got it across the line kind of round. It's still just 1 point on the scoreboard.
That is fair. I will give you that one. At least Asfi and Mentalist got to kill that round.
Yeah, well, no more donuts, but still a long way to go to look competitive in this game, because I'll just say it again, like ITB looking like the better team, and it's not a narrow margin. It wouldn't take much for Bleed to fire up on their defense. Of course, they much prefer defense. 73% defense win rate on Nighthaven to their 61 on attack. So obviously they're used to winning on both sides, but particularly on this defensive side. Into the breach, not strangers to attack on this map either. 67% on their attacking side. This is very early aggression, though, from Kenny being live drone. There's nobody here.
There's a gap right here. There is absolutely a gap. So many players on this roam, just one player inside of Assembly. Kendrew might have just found the winning way into round 7.
Mentalist got no idea about it as well.
Oh no.
Reveals his position, Kenny.
Uh-oh.
Mentalist, you can't afford to die here. We need Bleed to come back to site to support. Hoven's looking for him through the vertical angles, through the feet holes. Kenny's just in the middle of sight. This is a game of ring around the rosy, but nobody can find anybody. Hoven coming back for it. Eventually, Mentalist does go down. Hoven finds Kenny. The damage may have been done. Snuck into sight of ITB. And they got the numbers on their side as well. Up to Reaps and Asfi now on this retake, but they are so far from home. As I say that, Reaps does get one. Creed's the big hitter. He's gone down. Asfi's position revealed. Got to win this fight now, Asfi, as he falls back to sight. It might be redeemable for Bleed.
Might be redeemable if Noah wins that fight. Honestly, if either player wins that fight, that's probably the round for the victor. But Asfi decides to rotate back. Definitely the safe call with Diffuser down below, but with Noah left alive, he's got the skeleton key, and aside from using bullets, there's no way for Bleed to really deal with this effectively. No C4s, no impacts, so Noah can get all of this vertical control and set up Azur in a really nice way to maybe go for this Diffuser plant. It's so far away, it doesn't seem that they're actually going to rotate over and get it. I think it's a perfectly reasonable call in this case. But they've got to find intel, and they've just got one active drone remaining in Noah's pocket. So going for the kills here, Asfi and Reaps will have the advantage to rotate, find a gap where you're not looking. ITB need to be clean on these heads-up gunfights, because otherwise it's not happening.
Drop down. Noah goes down. Big from Asfi. Azza was just far too late. He's now picked up that diffuser, but he's got to jump in through this hole, and he will reveal his position. He's gone straight into the dread mine. I mean, this is a done deal. ITB had a beautiful play, but they're not able to make this one work. 4 seconds. Azza is not going to be safely able to stick this. He goes for the fake, and as a result, Bleed hold firm. Finding their first round of defense, but far too close for comfort. Smiles on their dials is exactly what we need to see from Bleed to fire up.
Certainly, and ultimately, you know, Kenju finds a really nice gap there. You know, overall good call from ITB to try to flood in. It takes a bit for everyone to actually get into position, but we do see people go to that assembly breach, start actually pushing into the site to support Kendrew, and not a lot of players rotate from Bleed. You know, we see Turds go down cargo stairs, and I think Hoven as well also goes into the site, but still have a couple players on that roam, Asfi in particular inside a garage. But the name of the game, more often than not, is if you try to quicken the pace, you're probably going to be a little bit lacking on the intel, which is where having really mechanically talented players comes in handy, or in the case of FaZe Clan, just 5 of the smartest players in the game that are able to adapt on the fly and still know exactly what they need to do. But when ITB find that gap, Bleed are able to find gaps, able to rotate where they're not expecting, win enough gunfights, and then close out the 2v2.
Yeah, but of course, Bleed are going to have that same level of skill on all these bomb sites, and yeah, it's going to be hard. I really think that fumbling that final round of attack is going to really hurt Bleed.
It's going to haunt them.
Because we've already seen how close these rounds are going to be on attack for ITB. Like, that could have easily been an ITB round win just passed. Now Bleed Going for an aggressive spawn peek as turd start. I mean, this is just classic from Bleed, isn't it?
You reckon ITB are ready for the Boss G ACOG spawn peek? Do you think they've got a guy like...
This guy went 1-14 when he tried to
but
tried the Boss G spawn peek. I wouldn't necessarily be bringing it out right now.
I don't know. There might be a guy in the strat book that's literally just sitting there, just like, all right, is the breach reinforced? Okay, we're fine. Who knows? Either way, ITB could go for that IT breach if they want to. They have a...
Is that what ITB stands for?
Into the breach. IT breach. Oh, that's clever. Yeah, now that's why they decided to bring out Nighthaven here. They're like, guys,
we have to go to ITB.
The breach is named. Wouldn't it be funny if they go for an Aqua take?
It's named after us. Yeah, I love that. Now, ITB are looking really solid on their attack. They look very organized. They haven't actually breached IT yet, funnily enough. They do have the Maverick, but hasn't yet used his torch. As I say that, Oscar rotates over. And this is what you call an into the breach. This is an ITB right here.
This is an ITB right here, hopefully going into the IT breach. But of course, if they were to do that, if they were to commit to it, the thing we got to look out for is the very first player we saw in the action phase. Turch down that pulse. Down below with that cardiac sensor with the C4. It's got. He's inside. Well, he could drop down through.
Well, he can give a lot of information. Like he can call how many players are pushing from blue for 1 point.
How many impacts? They have a shotgun even? They probably
he doesn't have to play vertical, though. Like, the pulse can still gather a lot of information about if there are players below or
it's the classic.
It is a classic.
Oh, Creeds, what are you doing? This is what I love.
Creepy Creeds.
This is why Doe could be so annoying, because not only do you have the calls, some dude who thinks he's the best player in the game could just walk up a hallway with the SMG-12 like, I'm Herds, I can make this work. And to be fair, Creeds is great. And if Asfi starts looking the wrong way and doesn't focus on connector, well, Creeds might actually find a gap right here.
ITB have been good at doing that. And good sound cover as well enables Kenny to jump in. ITB shaping up very much on this connector and electrical position.
Oh, they're ready for it now.
Yeah, and the Maverick starts to come through as well. How's Reaps going to deal with this as his position starts to get exposed with the Bark tearing up the floor from underneath him? Flash is getting on out. It's going to be a very awkward position for Bleed. Caught in a real awkward position. Reaps doesn't really know where to play.
And very awkward for ITB, too. I mean, what are you just going to do? Flood in through the connector door and the breach? Bleed have all their guns trained on this.
Oh, here we go. Straight into the breach, but Asfi's there for 2. Reaps to cover as well. Low HP as Azza down below looks to finish him off, and indeed he does. Good work on the vertical game. Meanwhile, Noah is the lone player near the site. There's just no time for Azza to get there. Noah is going to have to do it all himself. Terster a big C4 over the top, but it doesn't find anything. And as Noah goes down, it looks like the round must be over. Azza finds his pick, but there's simply no time to get that diffuser. Mentalist just has to run away. And he does! Big round from Asfi. Bleed tied the scoreline once again.
And unfortunately, just a bit of a lackluster attack from ITB that Bleed very effectively counter by doing the basics. Just holding the site, training your guns on the positions the attack is pushing from, also playing anti-flash, hiding behind the pillar when the secondary utility goes in. Just a well-played defense from Bleed, but ITB lacking an extra dimension on that attack, really, because the two kind of default pushes are through IT, through Garage, through connector, through Aqua. Those are kind of the two main ones. And maybe
there was nothing blue. Nothing
exactly.
Aqua, yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. There was nothing Aqua. It was a fully linear take from ITB, and the only guy you had was, I think, Azzer down below, and the push already happens. He's not able to get into position in time. He does push up Aqua, but way after the take's already expired. So ITB, I think, recognized what the right positions were. They just didn't take them in that moment, and the actual bulk of the push they went for was through one breach and a door.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I liked that they had the vertical play. That was their little extra thing that they had, but they didn't have anything blue, as you said, and that did make things a bit awkward. However, Bleed now, with the scoreline tied, must move on to a tertiary bomb site. And this is where it fell flat for ITB on their first half. They had 2 very dominant rounds, and then they struggled when they moved on to that tertiary bomb site. Let's see how deep Bleed's strat book is here as they go to cargo and storage. And once again, it's going to be very much an extended hold. Heavy presence upstairs.
You know the only thing I'd hate more than having to fight Creeds on Solus? Fighting Reaps 96 on Solus.
Reaps 96. Now, he's a bit of a gamer.
He is a bit of a gamer. And unfortunately, with the Specchio scanner and the SMG-11 for long range and the shotgun for close range, that's a bit of a worrying prospect, given he's, like you mentioned earlier, I think, the 6th highest rated player in the tournament. So, a little good at the game. Little good at the game indeed. And that doesn't even talk about the fact that with that Specchio scanner, if ITB try to go for a plant down below and the top floor roam isn't cleared, he could very easily deny it. Of course, what ITB could do is open up the IT breach, hardy har, but then just deny any rotations across of it, not actually take the control, then try to go for a quick play, quick plant in cargo. If they can minimize the impact of Reaps, of course. But it seems they're still trying to kind of fact-find, figure out what they want to do. They, of course, have that Grim to help on any execute they want to go for, along with the Dokkaebi too, but nobody from Bleed biting. That's the more important part. They're forcing ITB to clear them, not giving them any opening.
Stay sharp.
Oh, I think Azza just got information on where that Solus is as well, as he was using his scanner for a brief moment. IQ, very multifaceted operator. It works both ways, though, as the Solus can see the IQ as well. Good info for Reaps. Just trying to get a read on where this push is going to come through and how they're looking to clear this top floor, which I believe does seem to be the commitment from ITB. Almost a kill for Turd. As Reaps is the one feeling the pressure. Now, players looking to execute onto his position. He goes down.
What,
big
what the
from
hell?
Noah with the SMG-12. He finds a double. And now Bleed. Well, they bled pick after pick. There's 3 players from them gone down, and only Kenny fallen for ITB. Mentalist now looking for something with a C4, looking to try and capitalize off this information, but Asfi, he does so. Good headshot onto Azza, bringing it one step closer to even. This Dokkaebi call is making it all kinds of awkward for them.
This is going to be a very difficult tightrope for Bleed to walk. The big thing they have is Mentalist with the C4. He could deny it from a different room or rotate down below and use either of the soft floors in these sites to try to deny it. Asfi will be holding down up above. ITB taking their time, but there goes that C4. There goes that utility. ITB can now trade this advantage down.
Yeah, the damage was done, but not nearly enough. Bleed on their last legs here, but the time is ticking away, and it may be the 3rd player that Bleed is looking
Asfi.
for. Asfi's in a very cheeky position, so close to sight. I think he's going to find this. Oscar doesn't seem to have any idea, but it doesn't matter. He springs up at the best moment possible, and now Mentalist must find this 1v3. He denies the plan. All he's got to do is survive, but Creed says not today. Big round from ITB. Lead is theirs once again.
That awareness from Creed's right there, watching the exact vertical angle, able to catch Mentalist on that rotation out. There's only so many angles you can cover, especially when one of the players covering the plant is committing to the vault in the cargo alongside the player with the diffuser. Only so much you can watch, but you have one watching the garage side, and Creed's from up above watching the rotate from cafeteria. Nice little play right there to make that 3v2 work. And we actually have an ITB timeout. And to be fair, I can kind of understand why. You're thinking, hey, they won that round. What the hell's the game plan here? But look at how long it took them to get that roam clear going, and frankly, it was a huge individual performance from Noah with that double kill on the roam clear to make that a 4v2 and to make that so dominant and give them the amount of time to work with after that. So I think there's still things ITV can work on. The attacks have looked solid so far, but a bit slow to get things going in the round we just saw. And talking about time as well, remember that round earlier where they found the gap? It took a long time to get people into position to support Kendrew too. So I think maybe trying to speed things up a little bit without sacrificing too much intel, probably the name of the game here.
Very much so. Just look at their faces. I mean, this is the debut for most of the players on Into the Breach to a major, certainly the debut of the organization. One of the youngest rosters at the tournament. In fact, the 4th youngest roster in ITB. The youngest team at the tournament's actually Bleed, believe it or not. We've got 2 19-year-olds, a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old, and the veteran of this roster is only 23.
He's 23?
Mentalist is 23.
He's 1 year older than me?
Yeah, man.
That's crazy.
Oh my god, you're young as well.
My bad.
Wow.
I mean, to be fair, I didn't think Mentalist was like 29 or anything like that.
Mentalist joined, he's an OG, but like from when he was under 18. He was a part of that old Airwolf roster when they were called Envy before like he was allowed to play with them. He was their sub, their super sub that they were training up. As soon as he turned 18, he joined that roster. Of course, he was there in Tokoname when Airwolf famously beat the Giants roster. Alfama, I was talking to him. He was on that team. Got beat by Mentalist at that event. And yeah, that makes him a veteran because he's been around for so long, but still only 23 years old.
That's honestly a lot of credit to Mentalist. I mean, he carries himself with kind of a wisdom and a serenity that's, you know, a bit beyond his years. And sure, you know, maybe not having a super impactful individual performance right now, but it's pretty clear that, like I mentioned earlier, he clearly knows how to call a good game of Siege. He knows how to kind of handle these younger personalities. And for only being 23, frankly, that is very, very impressive. You also mentioned ITB. Aside from Kendrew, the most some of these players have played is like a Yukin land 3 years ago. They are very, very inexperienced when it comes to lands, let alone Tier 1 lands.
Except for Kenny, who's, of course, won a Pro League.
And he's dead now.
Yeah, he is dead indeed. Funnily enough, the Pro League he won was actually the one that Mentalist was at as well. It was, of course, Tokoname. Here we go into the building for Noah. Oh, but he loses his life to Reeps, who is dominating on this position up at Rafters. Now, Bombside is all the way downstairs, but Bleed are dominating on this roam.
Now, Reeps just taking a couple 1v1s given to him, able to win it. Why? Because it's Reeps 96. This is kind of par for the course with one of the best players from Asia. Potentially, in some cases, you can make an argument for one of the best players in the world, depending on the kind of game he's having. And Bleed right here don't need to be the best in the world. They just have to trade down a 5v3, and that hopefully any team at this event can do and do effectively. 4v2 now. So they go 1-for-1 on that kill, and there's not many options at this point for ITB. They have the buck up above. That's nice. They have these nades as well to clear out F-knots on any of these doorways. Missed it, but hey, he's got one more, I guess.
It's going to be awkward.
Oh, Oscar's in sight.
Yeah, he's actually marched his way on down. Got the diffuser as well, but Hoven does spot him, and the diffuser at that. Good round from Bleed. It really just came down to that early roam game from Reeps, who's, by the way, copped 10 kills. He's top fragging the server. And Azza desperately trying to duel 4 different angles at once, but this should be an open and shut case. Bleed back into it, and look at what a treat we've had today, Carter. It seems like every single game has been a very tight affair. This has been a real tug of war. ITB started so strong with the first 2 rounds, and since then it has been back and forth, and Bleed tying us up to 5 rounds apiece.
I mean, yeah, it's been an extremely close game. I think only like 1 to 2 players from each team surviving by the end of the round, all these coming down to the wire. And as you pointed out, what was the defining feature of that? Reeps getting 2 picks at the exact start of the round, stopping the roam clear in its tracks. Not much you can do after that, especially when Bleed are disciplined enough to make it a 4v2 and to trade it down to something still favoring them after the loss of that. 3 defenses for Bleed to 1 attack for ITB, only winning that tertiary site. If that pattern repeats, we will go to overtime, but this is now a must-win bomb site for ITB if they want a good chance at closing this out in regulation, because the defenses were solid. We can all agree on that, and there have been very solid pieces to their attacks. It's not been a bad game from ITB, but Bleed have been holding on, and I think one of the big reasons, it's been a big tournament from Reeps, but this game, Reeps is showing up, Hoven showing up, Turds showing up. We actually have a bit more of a even game between these players on Bleed, winning 1v1s far more consistently than before, and are really making it difficult for ITV.
10 seconds remaining.
Not out of the woods yet, though, a Bleed. However, they built up some good momentum here on their defensive side.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, and of course, attack is where the challenge really comes through, but we've got double shields and a Ying, so ITB are cooking up something very special, and they need to make good on this. I mean, this is either going to be the most phenomenal, beautiful round from them, or it will fall flat on its face. That's the nature of playing such a pocket strat kind of technique with 2 shields and a Ying.
And I imagine what you do here is, you have the Monty push one side, you have the Blitz push the other. I mean, Shield's so strong right now, so good at applying pressure to positions, though in 2 different ways. That make the most sense. And honestly, if they want to go for a connector-sided take again, they could send the Blitz into Aqua and do a similar strategy. But this is a very easy option to apply that other dimension. But with Kendrew playing Blitz with the diffuser, that might not be exactly what they have in mind.
What's he cooking up?
That's what I'm most curious about. They're pushed a bit towards the connector side at the moment. But, I see. So Oscar probably going to force control the garage with the Monty. Creed's backstabs. Kendrew hops into electrical and pressures with the Blitz. Tries to get the plant down, maybe around the pillar? I don't know. We'll have to see as the executes oncoming.
A big gamble to take, but Asfi does get the knife on a Kenny. But the bloodbath continues for both sides. The 1 shield down, but 1 still remains. Tursta weathering the storm on the site, but he's about to get pushed by this Monty. Good keeper barrier will lock that Monty back, and Bleed have fortified their position quite handily. Tursta about to throw down another keeper barrier, just slowing down this attack. And Hoven, he's come up from behind, but he's taken out the long angle from IT. Bleed falling, 1 by 1 by 1. ITB might have cooked up a storm, but Reeps is here to play spoils. Another big kill for the Chinese, as the New Zealander is the whole site to himself. Oscar and Azza trying to deal with this keeper barrier as the Monty starts to push on through. But Reeps, he's been so deadly today. He's looking for something more. Shotgun in hand. On the other side, Azza is
No way.
waiting to take him on down. Who will find the swing? The shotgun! Perfect for Reaps. All up to Oscar now. The Monty, the last one standing, but he's found turn. Reaps once again called upon.
C4.
But the diffuser has been locked down. A C4 waiting for Reaps. All he has to do is fall on back. Bit more damage onto Oscar. Oscar's got no good option here other than to take this fight.
No, all Reaps can do, he's just to sit here. Oscar can't push through. Oscar goes for the vault. Is Reaps aware of it?
This is winnable. Oh, Reaps! Shot to the foot, breaks his ankle, knocks him down. This guy is unbelievable. Match point for Bleed.
On top of all of that, too, for individual effort rewarded. 6-5 now, and all ITB have to hope for is winning that tertiary site, pushing this to overtime. Quality 7-4 over SSG today, but what a time for Bleed to come back into form. After that very close game against Talon earlier, where the attacking side wasn't that great, and to be fair in this game as well, certainly some problems on Bleed's attacking side, but the defense is here. Reaps obviously individually, but as a team, it all feels everyone is communicating, that we're on the same page, we're making plays together. That rotate, sure he dies, but that rotate from Hubbard up garage stairs to try to get the flank, that's on ITB to catch when it's a very hectic round ongoing. So I still like the ideas we have. They're coordinating very well, but it's still the tertiary side they have to win. OT is a very real possibility. Keep in mind, the one round ITB had still required a big double kill from Noah to actually get their advantage and convert that round.
And the only round that we've seen ITB win on their attack was onto this very bomb site. Bleed have Kitchen wide open. They could have gone to. It's what ITB did to close their half. They went to Kitchen and they won it in their final round of defense. Bleed deciding, no, we can back ourselves in here on this bomb site, even though we've lost it before. But I do smell an overtime that might just be cooking in the background here. ITB have had a phenomenal game, and to go down to Bleed, a team from a minor region like Asia, when they're the second seed into Europe, it would be a huge upset, even though Bleed have garnered quite a reputation for being that upset dark horse in this tournament so far.
Yeah, for Bleed, I mean, I've started to expect somewhat highly of them, given how much this team has achieved up until this point, given their relative newness to the scene. Like I think we mentioned earlier, you know, this roster really only coming together in the past year. I would definitely call this an upset, given their performance this tournament and given how good ITB looked earlier. To win 7-5 here, to go up 2-0 would be very, very nice. Will they be able to do it? Are some slight adjustments.
What is that from Asfi?
That's what I was going to say. One of them being a run out onto Azzer. So ITB starting this clear at a 4v5. Asfi might still be down below. There's still this roam up top. Remember how much was required of ITB individually to clear out these three players? Now you have to do that at a man disadvantage. They better have something cooked up.
My question is, has the tilt started to set in for ITB? Are they starting to get a little bit shaky? Because Bleed, they started so rocky in this game, and round by round, they're looking more and more convincing. And it really does come down to one man, Reaps, this demon, the high sense god out of China that a couple of years ago, everyone had just heard about him, and now he has plastered his name all over the international stage, and he's doing it dirty against one of the best teams out of Europe.
And the funny thing is, he doesn't even need to do anything here. What is ITB's game plan? We've had people opening breaches at the minute 30 left. Kendrew's down below EMPing things. Nobody's together right now. Nobody's cleared out anything. Nobody's made good of Azzer's death early on. The 5 drones we've expended have found nothing. The utility we've expended have found nothing. We didn't get a trade off Azzer's death, and there's still the roamers with the vertical angles alive. This is the easiest round we've seen so far for Bleed to win. This is a layup. They just need to make the shot.
Patience is a virtue, and that is all they exude right now. Big kills, another one for Reeves. Aspi locks down the side. Kendrew, once a Pro League champion, now must 1 versus 5 to keep this game alive against Bleed, but into the breach. They're going nowhere. 4 more to find for Kenny, and 20 seconds to make it work. He will find nothing. Turster dumps all over him, and Bleed have found their upset. 7-5 over into the breach. These guys continue their dark horse form in Manchester.
And 2 majors in a row now where they go up 2-0 to start their stage. They weren't able to qualify last time, But they've got 3 chances again to make main stage something that I think going into this tournament that they had in them, that they had that potential. I'm not saying they're going to win it, but I think this team has the potential to make a quarter, and my confidence was shaken a bit, but now they find themselves in this position with 3 shots. If they can keep this consistent performance we saw today, not perfect, that attacking side needs work, but this individual performance, if we see Reaps leading the way with 2 people supporting him, that can get you a victory in a best of 3 somewhere down the line, surely.
No doubt, heartbreak for Into the Breach. I mean, look at Kendra's face. It really says everything. And Julio comforting him, that's very, very wholesome. But Reaps and the boys must be incredibly fired up after that one. It has been a hell of a long time since we have seen a team from the Asia region on a main stage. And now Bleed find themselves just 1 series away from qualifying for being on stage in the top 8 in Manchester.
And look at Bleed's stats. This is what I mean by it was a team performance, sure with some flaws, but everyone was showing up in some way. Mentalist had 5 kills, and he still has the highest cost on the team, tied with Reaps and Asfi. You've got a great individual performance, consistent in the middle, 8 or 9 kills apiece, and then Mentalist doing what he does best, calling well, having impact where he can. This is the Bleed we need to see. Is it Bleed in their peak form? No, but it's Bleed that's getting the job done, getting games over the line. This is the team that I have been looking for personally to show up in Phase 2, and it was shaky against Talon, and there's things to work on, but this has been a solid day of matches to go up 2-0, and they can feel very, very good going into their future games in the Swiss.
Bleed have proved the naysayers wrong. They've taken down one of the best teams from Europe. A huge win for them, and, well, hello. Our beautiful faces are here, but we're going to go to a quick break before we finish off the first day of Phase 2 here at the Manchester Major.